Hi everyone. Thanks so much for your letters of concern. I'm much better now and happy to be making this video, which I think is quite unique because of the subject matter. I have a Kel-Tec RDB. You probably don't usually think of me in connection with firearms like this, but it's actually quite interesting. I also have on the table, which is quite unusual, I think, given the RDB being here, a Remington 700 and a Ralock 22, which we have reviewed maybe years ago, but I was reminded of the Ralock for some reason by this RDB. But I'll talk about the RDB first. Of course, I'm always, the last guy in the parade, but what an interesting firearm. Of course, the bullpup design, so the mechanism, most of what I'm saying, most of you will know, but I have no way of knowing that, so I go over it anyway. So yeah, I mean, the mechanism is back here, so your cheek is right on top of the, essentially, chamber, and then the barrel goes forward from there. It gives you a very short, overall length. I've got, and this isn't my rifle or carbine, so anyway, there's an aim point sight on, with the typical flip-up caps. These aim point sights, I'm sure, again, everybody knows, made in Sweden. It's a red dot, remarkably accurate, and we were at the range shooting, and it just reinforced sort of an idea I had for decades now, and that is there's no magnification on these aim points or on any of these sights, and it's surprising the small groups people accomplish with them. And I've seen it a few times where somebody is shooting a 2.5 power rifle scope or 4 power, and somebody else is shooting a cranked up, 12 power. And the groups quite often from the lesser magnification are excellent. That's because that reticle doesn't wander around on the lesser magnifications. Anyway, that's just a personal note. But getting back to the RDB, yeah, I mean, these engineers put in a lot of thoughtful features. So your cheek, of course, sits here. You can't adjust this, which might be nice, to have some kind of say in how long, what the length of pull is. But that it's fixed. And the most unique features, so I mean, this part is simple. Here's the operating lever on this side, and it's probably, and you can hear the spring and mechanism working quite clearly, and that's also true when you shoot. It's not quiet in its operation. Now, what firearm is quiet? But you usually don't hear the mechanism quite that loudly, although other carbines and rifles, so-called black guns, they can sound similar. Release for the magazine is a stamping. I don't want to go into meticulous detail, but this is how you release the magazine here. You push down here. So that's effective and simple. And I guess the main thing I noticed is, so you see there's no visible port anywhere. Sometimes there's a port here on bullpups on either side, depending. And this may be ambidextrous. You may be able to move this operating lever around to the other side. I'm not sure, but it looks kind of like something that would do that. So in order to see what's going on, you actually have to look into the magazine well, and then you can see, it's probably quite dark in there, but that's where you can see the bolt operating. And it took a few minutes for me to get used to that because, quite often, especially at the range, I'll chamber around with any firearm, a bolt action, and then you kind of want to double check if there's a round in the chamber. And in this case, you'd have to remove the magazine, and so maybe some extra steps, but altogether, quite an interesting firearm. And the trigger is, everybody says excellent, and I'm sure it is excellent. I'm not really, how to say, I make most triggers work for me one way or the other, but it probably is an excellent trigger. And the aim point sight is excellent too. So altogether, this is a very shootable package. People will ask, what's the rate of twist? I think it's 1 in 7. And you likely know that the faster the rate of twist, so that means one full bullet rotation in 7 inches. And quite often, this is a 223 or a 5.56. That'll stabilize the heavier bullets, 70 grain or what have you. I'm not an expert on the 223 or the 5.56, but I shoot a lot of 223. And so I thought I would make this video because this carbine contrasts so dramatically. So what did I notice in the shooting I did? Well, excellent accuracy. You go through a lot of ammunition. You don't have to do anything to reload. These are all things that are self-evident, but I'll say them anyway. The pistol grip is nice. The first few shots I noticed the concussion of firing because the barrel is much closer, the muzzle is much closer to you than someone like me would be used to. And then of course the sound of the mechanism. And there are different dampers and things I think that can be done. That's loud. Anyway, that is something else. So I thought, especially for our younger shooters, I guess this is one way to go. And there may be an appeal, and I'm sure there is, to that repeatability, that you don't have to do anything except keep feeding your mags. And did it jam? No, it never jammed. I would say it's an excellent machine. This is really something else. And you can equip it with lots better sights than I have on here, although this is probably an excellent sight. I bought it a few years ago for a reason, and it's good. So you kind of just keep that mental image of this in your heads, and then this is more what I grew up with. I mean, those kinds of guns have existed for a long time. Probably in the 60s, and maybe, arguably the FN, FAL, and earlier, that shape of firearm. But this is a 223. It's missing the rear sight. It had a big scope on it when I bought it. This is just a Remington 700. I don't know what the rate of twist is. It says 223 rem, so it probably is a lot slower than the Kel-Tec. I forgot to mention that the company is, or maybe I said it, I can't remember. Kel-Tec is the manufacturer. This is the Remington that we all know. It's got the hinged floor plate. It's the simplest rifle to operate. You won't find jams unless, sometimes there's some feeding problem with the bullet nose hitting the bottom of the chamber or something like that from too long reloads. Quite a decent walnut stock. Accuracy, well, arguably it would probably be more accurate than the Kel-Tec, but I don't know. That Kel-Tec was pretty accurate. As far as the range experience, well, I guess I must be old-fashioned. I have no problem. Actually, I prefer reloading the rifle myself, but I can see the appeal, especially given how often shooters now see firearms loading themselves. So the Remington may seem out of date, but it's actually not out of date at all. Just an excellent range gun. I'm just tinkering with it because I don't know what to say. You've seen this. This is the CDL version. So one can sort of, I guess, choose or maybe buy both. There's the Kel-Tec. There's one way of thinking about guns in my right hand, and there's the other way of thinking about guns in my left. And it was just something that crossed my mind that I would share with you. And I have no conclusions or real judgments. They're both remarkable. I kind of like this Remington 700. I've got to find a rear sight. That's quite common, by the way. And I've said this before, people take off the rear sight because the bell of the scope is too large. and then they get rid of the sight someplace or store it away, and then I come along and buy it. This one's excellent shape. And I mean, this is way under an inch at 100 yards. I'll have to take it to the range again. So just something to think about. And then why did I bring out this Ralock 22 that I would be surprised if you've seen this before, except on this channel and maybe a couple other places. Made by BSA for a short period of time. It fires from an open bolt. Again, like the Kel-Tec, you can't see what's going on inside this action. So people look at it often and wonder how do you load it? And well, the loading is here, kind of like the Browning semi-auto. So you feed rounds in, and then still you're looking for an operating lever or an ejection port. Well, loading is pulling down here. Now we pulled the bolt back, and when we close, this is loaded, but we can't really check. We can't see the chamber. This is for takedown, if I remember right. So it's, again, everything on this rifle is just like first class. Too bad they didn't last very long. And then when you fire, of course, the bolt flies forward. And that's it. But the Kel-Tec reminded me of this because you can't really see what's going on in there. Some people think through the bottom, but no. You can't see anything through the bottom. So then, of course, the next question is the ejection port. And we're going to go back to the Kel-Tec in a second. I forgot to tell you about something. The Ralock is the only firearm I've ever owned where when you fire, it ejects into a cage in the bottom of the action. So your brass doesn't go anywhere. The brass is captured by the gun. I'm sure other guns have done this. I just never came across one. And I like that feature a lot. So now you finish shooting, and if I guess you have to count your shots to know that it's empty, or just fire on an empty chamber. No danger of breaking a firing pin because the bolt is the firing pin. And then when you lower this lever, all the empties come tumbling out. So it's very clean. And I'll finish off by saying on the Kel-Tec, this part I really liked. Of course, where's the ejection port? It's here at the back of the action. And so your empties fall out the bottom of the action. So after you finish a magazine, there's a nice little pile of brass, under your knees, which is a nice feature. I like that. Not that I'm rushing to reload these days. I have no time, but if I did, that would be very convenient. And I'm probably missing features, but I don't feel bad about it because I'm like I said, I'm so far behind. Maybe there's another generation of these, or even two, but this is the one that I had access to. So I thought I'd share it with you. And yeah, it's like I said, it's an amazing shooting machine, just like the rest of them. We looked at a BNT, Brugger and Tomei from Switzerland a few videos ago, and that's a 9mm. But I mean, remarkable category of firearms, and actually quite an accomplishment that they got all these parts together and created a very reliable firearm. Anyway, sort of a scattered video, but I thought not everywhere can you see a Kel-Tec and a Remington 700 and the Ralock together, but it does get you thinking, and I'm always hopeful that our younger viewers take a look at everything, not just what's popular. And all right, well, I'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for sticking with the channel, and we'll keep making videos, hopefully better and better. All right, take care.